2023 has now been officially declared the hottest year on record. A new report released today from the World Meteorological Organization shows that records have once again been broken on temperatures, throwing light on the alarming situation of climate change. The climate change has resulted in ocean heat, sea level rise, Antarctic sea loss, glacier heat. The report has also highlighted how extreme weather conditions have undermined socio-economic development across the world, including here in India. And joining me now is Professor KA Rao, lead author of the recently released Intergovernmental Panel Report, former head of the Center for Atmospheric Sciences at IIT Delhi. Appreciate your joining us, Professor Rao. I just want to understand from you that the new report from the World Met Organization confirming that 2023 was the hottest year on record, global average near surface temperature at 1.45 Celsius. Is this a red alert to the world, that the world is just getting hotter and caught up in the worries of climate change?
Absolutely. This has been coming gradually. It's been creeping up on us, but this last year has just been a tremendous increase in global average temperatures. And we have been reporting this in report after report from the IPCC, but what happened in 2023 has just been alarming, and this is indeed a red alert for all of us.
What explains it? Do you want to give us a sense as to what explains what's happening across the world, these rising temperatures? Do you believe it's going to get worse in the years ahead now?
I do believe that it is going to get worse in the coming years. And the reason for the increases that we've been seeing and the increasingly rapid changes in our climate has been our continued emissions of greenhouse gases, primarily from burning fossil fuels and other greenhouse gases from methane to nitrous oxide. These are a consequence of our continued use of fossil fuels and not having enough renewable in our mix of energy. And the continued industrialization and growth that we've seen over the last 50, 60 years is catching up with us. And as we go forward, unless we take rapid steps to decrease our emissions and bring it back to a level that the natural systems can take up what we emit, this temperature change is going to keep happening, and we will see worse yet.
But Professor Rao, this is presumably not just an India problem, but a global problem. And therefore, you can't just single out India. This is a problem that the Western world in particular has also got to address. India says, in fact, it should start from the Western world when it comes to control on emissions. So what's your sense? Do you get a feeling that the world is ready to embrace this climate action plan for the future?
We've been hoping that the world gets ready. It's been more than 30 years of warnings from scientists, and it appears that the world is yet to take this seriously enough. And I think this is this recent report that has just come out today from the WMO is a wake-up call, because what this report also points out is that, there's a do nothing, and there are costs with doing nothing, things that are going to happen, damages that are going to occur, losses that are going to happen. If we do nothing, those costs are much, much higher than the cost of taking action. That is something that people, governments across the world have to realize, that they cannot keep pointing fingers at you first and I'll follow you, because this is something, as you rightly said, is a collective. We are all in this climate boat together. What happens in another country affects us. What happens to us affects everybody. So in this regard, I do understand that the Western countries have had the lion's share of emission and therefore a lion's share of the responsibility to fix our climate. But that doesn't mean that we can just sit back and look at their actions and say you're not doing enough. We also have to do our bit.
What is that bit? Where do we start? If we assume, as you say, that we are now going to see hotter and hotter summers, temperatures rising even further, and the enormous damage that can cause to our socio-economic development, where do we start this debate as far as India is concerned on climate change?
India is already doing some of the things that are necessary. The enormous attention being paid to renewable energy in India, whether it is wind or solar, is indeed one of the key things that needs to be done. Now, whether that alone is sufficient, whether we can continue to use coal and other fossil fuels while also growing our renewable sources of energy, this is where there is a very tight rope that needs to be walked. This has implications for our development, but at the same time, what we have to understand is our own actions, if we delay, the damages that we are inflicting on ourselves is going to start mattering. And I think globally, every country and India need to step up their game and go towards a more carbon-free world.
May I ask you in conclusion, as you said, there's a red alert that has been sounded by the World Meteorological Organization. In the Indian context, is there any particular region that should be very worried about it? Because we've seen in the last year, during the monsoons, the kind of rains that the Himalayan belt experienced, the flooding, the landslides. We've seen previously cyclonic conditions only intensifying both on the west and east coast of the country. Is there any particular region that should be worried about the manner in which now this report signals this red alert?
I think we need to be worried for almost all of India. There are different hazards that we are experiencing, whether you're on the east coast or the west coast. As you mentioned, the tropical cyclones inflict a lot of damage. In the Himalayan zone, we have heavy rainfall that results in landslides and other damages. We have glaciers that are melting and melting faster and possibly culpable in damaging some of our infrastructure in the Himalayas. And in the plains, just 2 years ago, we experienced one of the earliest heat waves, and that had a tremendous effect on our agriculture. So I don't think any part of India is going to be immune from it. Each one of our economic sectors, each one of our geographical regions is vulnerable. And these vulnerabilities are what we need to take cognizance of and take steps to make them more resilient.
Professor Rao, for giving us a sense of what really this report suggests, for flagging of some of those key areas of concern, I appreciate you joining me here on the news today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.